We request everyone to be seated, be comfortable, all mobile phones put on to silent mode. We will commence with the proceedings in few minutes from now. We are waiting the arrival of our guest of honor, who would be joining us any moment now, and we will go ahead with the proceedings of the 12th India Public Sector Agenda at 2031. Once again, kindly be seated. We also have tea and coffee served outside on the right hand side. If you wish to help yourselves to a cup of tea and coffee, you may kindly do so. Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So we are ready to go ahead with the proceedings of today's event. May I once again request everyone to be seated and all mobile phones either switched off or put on to silent mode from now onwards, please. And now to begin with the proceedings, may I invite on stage eminent speakers for the first session. I would like to invite Mr. J.V. Ramamurthy, former President and CEO, HCL. Let's put hands together, ladies and gentlemen, to welcome him. I invite Ms. Deepa Gupta, Finance and Policy Specialist. A very warm welcome to you, ma'am. I invite Mr. Rajiv Bhadoria, former Director, Jindal Steel and Power Limited. A very warm welcome to you, sir. I invite Mr. Partha Guha, Partner in Turnaround and Restructuring Strategy, EY. A very warm welcome.
I'm currently with Reliance Anil Dhirubhai Money Group as the Group Director, Group Advisor.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Rajiv Bhadoria is currently with Reliance as the Group Director.
Group Advisor to Anil Dhirubhai Ambani.
He's the Group Advisor to Shri Anil Dhirubhai Ambani ji. We stand corrected on his designation. Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together to welcome him on the panel. And I also invite Dr. Rajiv Singh, Director General ICC. Warm welcome to you also, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest of honor, Mr. Madhukar Gupta, IAS, Commissioner, State Election Commissioner, Government of Rajasthan, will be joining us shortly. His flight got delayed, but he's already landed on his way to the venue. Meanwhile, we will go ahead with the proceedings. Once again, and I also invite Mr. Sanjeev Kumar, CMD TCIL, to join us on the panel. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together to welcome him. Namaskar and good morning. Eminent dignitaries on the dais, special invitees, senior officials, distinguished delegates, respected members of the press and media, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Indian Chamber of Commerce and EY, I have the proud privilege in welcoming you all to the 12th India Public Sector Agenda at 2031, which is on the theme of disinvestment in PSUs and changing PSU financial infrastructure dynamics. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the consecutive 12th year ICC, along with the knowledge partner EY, is organizing this conclave, addressing the relevant topic of PSUs. And the honorable presence of eminent dignitaries is a source of inspiration for all of us. And ladies and gentlemen, as is customary, we begin the auspicious occasion by lighting the ceremonial lamp and invoking the gods and goddesses, which we will do, ladies and gentlemen, after our guest of honor is here with us. We are waiting for his arrival any moment now. So founded in 1925, Indian Chamber of Commerce, ICC, is the leading and the only national chamber of commerce having headquarters in Kolkata and one of the most proactive and forward-looking chambers in the country today. Its membership spans some of the most prominent and major industrial groups in India. ICC's forte is its ability to anticipate the needs of the future, respond to challenges, and prepare the stakeholders in the economy to benefit from these changes and opportunities. Set up by a group of pioneering industrialists led by Mr. G.D. Birla, the Indian Chamber of Commerce was closely associated with the Indian freedom movement as the first organized voice of indigenous Indian industry. And ladies and gentlemen, may I now request Dr. Rajiv Singh, Director General ICC, to kindly begin the proceedings with his welcome address. Let's put our hands together to welcome him.
Good morning, all.
Good morning.
On behalf of ICC, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to all our guest speakers and all the participants who are here with us at the PSE Excellence Conference and the awards. ICC has been working and engaging with PSEs for last many decades. But 12 years back, we thought it's appropriate on behalf of Indian industry and on behalf of the chamber to acknowledge and to share the great work PSUs are doing in building the nation, and also in contributing in a large manner to the growth and the growth plans. If you look at the initial years after independence, I think PSUs really were the pillars of growth, and things started shaping up for the country. The large capacities were set up by PSUs. Gradually, the private sector also, who was already there, and ICC knows because Calcutta was the hub that time. All the businesses and everybody was there. And gradually the entire industrial landscape changed. But if we look back, the way PSUs have transformed and the way they have contributed, I think it's definitely important that their contribution to the nation is recognized, shared, and projected. So this is our, in a way, small initiative from ICC to acknowledge all the wonderful work which the PSEs have done in India. As the times have changed, and especially if this morning we were talking how things have evolved in last 3 to 4 years, the change has been very, very rapid, and huge disruptions have taken place, not only in the business space, but also in geopolitics, the way consumers look at anything, the entire behavior, the digital journey, which was moving slowly, gradually, suddenly got a huge boost, and the digital technology adoption saw a huge rise. If you look at India's exports, I think India has registered the record number of, the record value till date in terms of exports. If you look at technology, the way it has progressed and changed in last few years. So times are really, really exciting, challenging, and the opportunities are evolving every day. So the theme for the conference, which we have today, in the afternoon we'll have the awards, when we will have the heads of various PSEs, their chairmen, directors, and everybody joining us in the afternoon. So the awards will be presented at 2 o'clock, immediately after the lunch. But this part is to look at how the PSUs are looking at future, how they are looking at transforming internally to keep pace with the changes which are happening globally. And that is the core theme. We could also mention about disinvestment, and we'll also be talking about various avenues. I won't say restructuring exactly, but structuring the PSEs, which of course the leadership has to do, keeping pace with what's happening globally. If you see, entire energy space has suddenly been disrupted. If you look at the technology space has been disrupted. If you see the supply chains are being built around Quad in this entire Indo-Pacific region. And most of the countries are looking at China One policy. They are looking at engaging more and more with India. If you look at FDIs, India has been one of the foremost country to receive FDIs. If you look at the defense sector, Indian defense space has transformed, it has opened up. India has starting exporting, India is looking at collaborations globally. And if you look at the way entire startup space has evolved, startups are disrupting entire business models. So there is a need, and it is already happening, for the business leaders to look at ways and means to keep pace and to grow and to capture the avenues which are opening up every day. There is also, when we talk of PSUs, I think with confidence I can say that there are plenty of PSEs who have excellent governance structures in place. And in some areas, even private sector can learn from them. So it's also a platform to talk about those practices, those good things which PSEs are doing, and how Indian industry per se could learn from them. At the same time, we share experiences, and so that these practices are well spread, practiced by all, and at the same time we acknowledge the great work which is being done by the teams which are there at the back end in all the PSEs. When it comes to large projects, large initiatives, or championing new areas, let's say when India started talking about hydrogen, so it was basically some of the PSEs who started and who took the lead. So PSEs in that sense also play a big role, where when it comes to making the first investment, taking the first step. So I will not elaborate too much on this, because we have a very distinguished panel. We have all the people who have worked closely, engaged closely with the PSEs. Some of them are also the jury members. So the jury also gets, let's say, a close look at how and what best practices are in place at the PSEs. So I'm sure there is a lot to learn from the distinguished panel here. With this, let me once again welcome all our guests, and especially the speakers who are there with us. First of all, I would like to welcome Rajiv Bhadoria ji. We have interacted and engaged for quite some time. Mr. J.V. Ramamurthy, I think with a lot of affection we call him JVR. So, welcome. Ms. Deepa Gupta, a very dynamic professional, not only in India but globally. Mr. Partha Guha, who represents EY, and he brings wealth of knowledge with him in the PSE space. And he is also the expert on turnaround and restructuring strategies. So happy to have you here. We have a special guest with us, Mr. Sanjeev Kumar. Sir, we are really thankful to you for being with us, CMD of TCIL. And Mr. Madhukar Gupta will be with us very soon. But in the meantime, we thought we should start the session and the proceedings. Once again, welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much indeed, sir, for those warm words of welcome, and also for setting the context for the day. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I have the proud privilege in inviting to address the August House, Mr. J.V. Ramamurthy. He's the former President and CEO HCL Jury Member ICC. I would invite you, sir, to kindly share your thoughts. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, put your hands together.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for inviting me. I wanted to briefly tell about myself. I was in HCL for about 34 years. Before that, I was in public sector myself for 10 years. And now last 2 years, I am doing mentoring the startups and in various types of startup foundations and evaluation of startups in IIT Palakkad member, etc. So what I wanted to tell is both, I'm not here to say which is good or which is not good. What I wanted to tell, a stage has come for India or for the industry, instead of competing or thinking who is better or who is not better, to work as co-opting. There are a lot of strengths that the public sector has, call it manufacturing, doing with the defense standards, JSS specifications, export obligations, and technology absorption, especially on high tech, where rarely you can get other than technical collaboration from there to make it into and roll it out in India, etc. But also the stage has also come that a lot of things are changing, which both the sides have to look at it. A time has come to evaluate and do self-assessment of what are their strengths and what are the other strengths on the corporate sides and how they can compete the global challenges. And the last 2 years, the changing policies and the government is also so much enabled that it's a time for us to do a lot of transformational journey. The technology landscape is also changing so much. When I look at it, anything on hardware, anything on now with the defense public sectors opened up and made so much of productions are happening, all the DPSU order books are so heavy or the largest, and with so many more orders that's coming, we are the largest purchaser of defense equipment or manufacturers of defense equipment if we can put our act together. One of the points which I really felt is, at the same time when these things are changing, it is no more hardware alone, it is no more application development alone. A time has come, lot of, like for instance, I'll just tell you one small example, like mission computer in an aircraft. These things are no more hardware dependent alone, because another weapon can be added, or another missile can be added, or any type of bomb can be integrated, and that is not in the DPSU domain, but it is on the armed forces have to decide based on what acquisition happens in the neighboring countries or neighboring, are the technologies that are going to get, how the the defense procurement changes. So naturally, we can't again produce another hardware, etc. Instead of that, can we think of an application which can integrate that into the EEPROM and then get it into making it ready in case that weapon gets need to be integrated with the aircraft or any type of arsenal that we wanted to do. These type of things are still not in the public sector domain still, because it requires a lot of validation, verification, and also critical evaluation from quality before it is accepted, put into a fighting force. These things are the strength of the corporate sides, and the manufacturing is in the strength of a public sector side. And this is the one, both together making the India GDP highest. Both are needed badly. One of the successful recent company which has come to my mind in public sector is IRCTC. It is the number of highest hits in the whole world, more than 1 crore hit in a day. And I know, because we were also dealing with it, and earlier when we were, whatever bandwidth we supply, next month they'll say, no, this is not enough. Once we did this, then security became a constraint, then storage became a constraint, then access time became a constraint. Like that they went on, and then today they are the largest. That's one thing which is really seeing. And they have got so much of capability on one side. The other side, that type of companies are not existing in private sector at all, in corporates at all. And a stage is coming where both of them can bid together in several things. Take, for instance, system integration projects of large scale. It requires hardware, it requires application development, it requires project rollouts, procurement, and finally the collection of the money. This together, if they can make it, I'm sure the history will be rewritten. And as India, as the largest, India is very well respected for technology innovation and technology development, and also in rolling it out on a behemoth scale. I think some of the projects we did it in India is the largest in the whole world. So with these feathers in our cap, a time has come for us to look at it differently than looking at it, because some requires, on private sector, money availability is always difficult, and on public sector, money availability is not that difficult, and also the cost of money is also lesser. So can they use the complementing strength for each other and make it happen is what thing. And also one of the greatest thing which I would like to currently compliment the government is that they allowed the DPSUs to go outside India. For a long time, India was not taking a stand that we don't want to be an exporter of arms. Now today, that's behind us, and that's one of the things that we can look at it. As in South Asia, I think everybody is, whatever India implements, they want to replicate without even winking the eyelid. Take, for instance, UIDI. It's the largest success story in the recent past in the government. And now we are coming out with health identification cards. So this again requires this. If these type of experiments, this type of experience, this type of project knowledge, rollout knowledge, if we can bid it outside, but the sales and marketing strength in public sector is thus certainly a long way to go. That, if they can take it, project rollouts, if they can be done from the private sector or corporate sector, and the government's knowledge on the project, technology prowess, putting robust cyber security and so on. I think we made the, and it can also, whatever we made, it is withstanding all the scrutiny of the courts and Supreme Court and privacy, so many things. With these qualifications, I think we'll be far off than the rest. So this is time is coming, and also, but one thing we all have to be clear, that a time has also come for us not to talk and discuss it and debate it forever. The opportunity what we have is a limited opportunity window. We need to make it, and the prosperity lies within India with the GDP, with so much of trained manpower, trained technology manpower, technology absorption, and so on. I think it's easiest than done. I think a time has come for us to put the barriers behind and work together with belief and confidence and take it further. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for those insightful views you shared with the audience. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we have with us Mr. Partha Gua, who's partner in turnaround and restructuring strategy, Ernst & Young, LLP. Ernst & Young, ladies and gentlemen, provides audit, consulting, tax, business risk technology, and security risk services and human capital services worldwide. Ernst & Young is our knowledge partner for today. And for the special address, let's put our hands together to welcome Mr. Partha Gua.
Good morning all, respected speakers, Rajiv ji, delegates, the organizing team of ICC, as well as my own colleagues from EY. It gives us great honor to partner with ICC in this prestigious award ceremony. Personally, we started off on this journey last year, and we hope to continue this journey many years going into the future, and hoping to see more and more PSEs strive for this moment of recognition, this moment of acknowledgement, this moment of truth for what they have done and what they continue to contribute to the economy. Personally, I have actually worked with a number of PSEs, right from perhaps the most profitable PSE in India to arguably one of the largest loss-making PSEs which was finally divested by the government of India. And I've seen both the best and the worst of practices that are present there. And again, in a ray of hope, I think more and more PSEs are now trying to adopt and adapt to the new work style, trying to adopt new technologies, new ways of working, finding new solutions for problems, finding new avenues of growth, and finding new opportunities, which they are actually turning around diversity into these new opportunities. And that's perhaps the main topic or focus of our discussion that's going to be that how does the PSE environment enable and still accelerate development and growth, not only for the PSE, but continue to add value to the economy as well as to the Indian public as whole. In this framework, we need to bring together not only technology, but also our commitment and our duty towards society and how we value add to the society as a whole. Our topic for today, of course, specifically is around how the financial infrastructure of PSEs is going or will undergo some changes and will undergo some dynamic changes as well, especially in the context of the fact that our government is now clearly focused towards certain sectors and needs and understands the need to continue to invest heavily in enabling companies and enabling growth rather than actually starting to involve themselves in growth directly through their role in PSEs. That means that the PSEs now need to understand and identify new sources of capital, new avenues of monetizing their value, new avenues of realizing the potential that they have in their assets, and very importantly in their manpower, because till date, I mean, whenever we need some specific sector knowledge or sector inputs on some of the key sectors where the government has been present, I mean, our first port of call would be one of those ex-GMs or EDs or MDs of those organizations who have actually handled real life on the ground problems throughout their careers, solved them at the grassroots level, and actually built solutions from nothing. So with these words, I would like to welcome again all of you and look forward to a very enthusiastic discussion amongst the panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I have the proud privilege in inviting Ms. Deepa Gupta, Finance and Policy Specialist, Jury Member, ICC, to kindly do the honors of addressing the August House. Ladies and gentlemen, let's once again put our hands together to welcome.
Thank you so much. And yeah, I'm a person who is very vivacious by temperament, very passionate about what I do. And I find a lack of energy. So before I go ahead, I would say, whoever we are the stakeholders to a policy which comes to the nation. And hence, it's very important to us to be energetic. We may be in the mid sector of the management. We may be outside the management, be a part of the outside stakeholders. But the fact remains that we have to be part of the system and make it happen. And hence, I say, I will share about me. I'm very much a part of India, but I'm also part of Australia, so I'll bring some experiences of across the nations and how I could do a brand building over there and create a history for my mother India over there in not years, but just less than 3 years, out of which 2 went in COVID. So that goes to say, if we have the will, we can do what we want. And that's a statement I would say for the our PSU enterprises as well. But I'll go more in detail. And as we know that human memory is a little short, so I'll try to go on the brief of where PSUs have been as far as disinvestment goes, where we stand today, the challenges which we face, and what's the best way to overcome them. And of course, I would love to have any comments or any contributions in that as well. So I got to say that CPSEs, basically there were 5 CPSEs in 1951, and by 1969, we had 84. And then 2011 and 12, we had 260 of them, increasing to threefold being 382 from where they started in the year 1969. Not bad. I'm sure they had a big role to play. The evolution policy in India, I'll just take a couple of minutes to brief you so that you don't have to put too much of stress in your minds to think where we started from. So the idea of disinvestment actually gained in the 1990s when we thought that it's time we start looking at more pragmatic views. And it was also called strategic sales at that time. And 8.87% of the select PSUs was diluted at that time. Then it was during phase 2 of the disinvestment, that was between 1999 and 2004, where privatization took place, which is the phase 2, and saw a strategic disinvestment sale of 12 public sector enterprises. Then comes phase 3, which began from 2004, oversaw a return to a policy of retaining the character of public sector enterprises and selection of sale on a case-to-case basis. A new impetus to the idea of public sector privatization came in year 2014, and with a new policy announced in 2016, with emphasis laying on efficient management and promoting public ownership, but also saw an evolution with department disinvestment renamed as Department of Investment and Public Asset Management instead of disinvestment, which sounded a little bit that we are going down the line. So we had an expansion mandate, and government investments along with disinvestment and target roles for Niti Aayog were taken care of by DIPAM. Strategic and non-strategic investments were identified, and non-strategic sector would be taken, strategic and non-strategic sector would be taken out for privatization, merger, subsidization with other PSCs, with other CPSCs, or foreclosure as the case would be, depending upon what the due diligence would require it to do. So at the same time, a minimum presence of the strategic sector would be maintained was the bottom line of it. And important part of the strategy was asset monetization, an expansion of the scope of disinvestment with that as the base word, so that there could be a best product produced out of that. Going from there, during financial year 15-16, from financial year 15 right up to 2023, there's been about 4.07 lakh crores which has been realized as proceeds from disinvestments through 154 transactions with various modes of investments and disinvestments. And privatization of Air India has been particularly interesting for all of us as an audience, as a part of the stakeholders, and as of service users as well. And it certainly igniting the light to privatization once back into the field. Now, it's also important to understand what's been the trend of disinvestment in India over the period. Disinvestment of fiscal management of the years from 2004 expected to receive about 51,000 crores in year 2024. And also in 22-23, it was estimated that 77% of the disinvestment target would be achieved, which is, 50 of 65,000. Not bad. Okay, PSUs, well. Now, very important part when we talk of disinvestment is that there are various challenges which take place when any kind of disinvestment's done. For example, when we talk about disinvestments, it's important to understand that all the transactions which took place where government offloaded 51%, it involved PSCs picking up the share of the PSCs offloading it. So the question that came, and a very big example like HPCL went on to ONGCL. So the very big question comes, is actually a disinvestment taken place? And also important that the proceeds got included in the realized receipts of this disinvestment. Now, next important question that comes is, what's the value of the, which, I'm sorry, Partha also mentioned, valuation of the public assets has been a big question. certainly because new valuations accounting standards come into place. Then the question of what valuation is determined, is somebody ready to pick it? And if a private sector is identified, there's a discretion about that, autonomy of the decision, whether that decision is right or wrong, whether a favor or Fred has been made about it or not. There are various kind of things that start encompassing a process, and sometimes it gets shrouded. Like, for example, even in the case of Air India, it was about a year or more than, I'm right, about more than a year ago, and it finally now seems to be streamlined now. Am I right to understand that? Yeah, so that as well, that really shows that though it's a very beautiful affair, but a lot of things that come into the being that kind of shroud it at times to really make it a go and give it the best what it's supposed to be. Then also there was a monetization of the assets which brought in an SPV by the government, which was National Land Monetization Corporation for Asset Monetization. But the fact remains that at what value the assets would be monetized and move on to the corporation was a big issue, and hence the whole process got delayed. Now, time is money, so at all ends of the stakeholders, whether it's the government or whether it's the companies, we all need to understand that it's important to fructify those issues in real time of effective best utilization, which really seems to be important to be highlighted and considered as something which is a flagging point, as we call in the corporate language. Then fair value, what's a fair value at which it will be monetized? Then what will be the interest of the employees who are going to be disinvested? What's going to be the utilization of the proceeds? Then certain legal disputes start up among the private corporate which is picking it up and between the government. So all those things are important to kind of walk out before as far as possible, so that we can really have a value addition of the disinvestment which the government proposes to have as a big benefit. So those are one of the challenges, but yet at the same time, we need to understand that disinvestment is a big engine of growth. And just because it is shrouded by some challenges, that doesn't mean that we need to say, okay, let's put it on the parking shelf. No, that's exactly a reason why we need to address it and say, yeah, what's wrong with it and where are we missing the buck? So, I personally feel that probably in the scenario of disinvestment in public sector enterprises, maybe a partial disinvestment and identifying the key enterprises, improving governance structures where there's a lack of a bit of it, adding new CPSEs having higher profitability would be a good go. And also, it's supposed to be a good policy that the government normally doesn't have more than 20% share on the product market of any particular sector, be it strategic or non-strategic, so that it's, as Partha said, an enabler and not a controller. Because any investment, when it becomes a control point, then it starts having the fixation of an iron wall which stops the growth walls of anything for which it has been built. And CPSEs of non-essential nature, like engineering, tourism, construction, and trading, could certainly be offloaded and complete without any loss to the government or to the exchequer for that matter, and could do far better in an open space without having the control and mechanisms which they have to undergo at present. And it's also important to understand that in the present scenario, the external factors like what are the interest rates, what are the global market conditions, market sentiment, and with the COVID just about 2 years ago, inflation, all those factors as well impact the disinvestment. And so the global outlook on investment with an inflation environment is aggressive and good because it gives us a good money back. But also note that these targets can be achieved through sale of public assets only if they are at a fair value, because at the end of the day, it's the taxpayers' money. And in the light of increasing currency payment and systems, I think the government has done a good job in terms of taking over on disinvestment of traditional PSUs to taking on to be as a facilitator in a new economy where we had beautiful forums like BEAM and UPI, which have really taken over on the global level and brought in a whole lot of strength to the economy. And before I close, I'll give a couple of minutes of what I would like to. We did a well bit on unicorns when we had unicorns like Zomato, Flipkart, Airbnb, automation, and all of you might have also heard a new AI, which is the new takeover roles of the whole world, which is the Chat GPT. So AI is the buzzword. If AI is the buzzword, then we all need to progress into a mechanism where procedural issues are moved out and something which is really, really value for the particular issue needs to be concentrated, and that's the value product where we would get. In talks of unicorns which have been latest, we've had Bharat Pay in web designing, we've had applications open in product financing, Oxizo for SMEs, and open for banking SMEs. And more important part of the story for all the people here, which is, I'm drifting a bit away from the PSU investment, is the new era when we talk about hybrid working from home. So basically the barriers of all of us being a part of a voice of what we want to do, is not exactly from sitting in the office by wearing a pant shirt and a sari and being formally. We can very much be doing it from wherever we are, and that's the ethos and the thing which needs to be changed in the PSUs as well, so that it can match out and compete with the private sector and say, this is the value addition I bring, and I need to have to go out to be off-sold at a value far better than any other. So these are the new progresses which we need to take. A value also need to be given in terms of not procedures, but to stakeholders for actually what they contribute. Like I have been pretty much active in policy formation in Australian in a lot of companies, one of the important one being the Australian Gas Infrastructure Group. And I'm amazed to see the kind of input that's taken from the stakeholders and the inputs which are addressed into the policy change to make it effective, applicable, and really smooth with the consumers. And that's something which our PSUs could also look at. And with that, I would say that nothing stops us if we have a determination to do and also feel that we're going to make a change. And I'm a standing example to say, I rise like a phoenix from the ashes. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much indeed, ma'am. And ladies and gentlemen, we have with us our guest of honor, Mr. Madhukar Gupta ji. He's IAS Commissioner, State Election Commissioner, Government of Rajasthan. Let's put our hands together to welcome sir. And I would now request our guest of honor and other dignitaries on the dais to kindly do the honors of lighting the ceremonial lamp and formally inaugurating the 12th India Public Sector Agenda at 2031. Yes, sir. And ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together on the ceremonial inauguration. Ladies and gentlemen, it is said, the diya when lit emits light and derives energy. It is the very life source that sustains us. Each wick being lit and passed from one to another symbolizes the sharing of knowledge. Each wick being lit today is a prayer for global peace and solidarity. Thank you very much indeed. I would request everyone to kindly take their seats. As I have the privilege in inviting now Sri Rajiv Bhadoria, He is the Group Corporate Advisor with Reliance. May I invite you, sir, to kindly share your thoughts with the August House?
Well, a very good afternoon to you, most beautiful ladies and gentlemen. Well, I think the whole context of India public sector agenda at 2031 is what strikes me most, instead of the disinvestment bit, because disinvestment has a connotation that we just take it for granted that this public sector is not doing well. There are certain assumptions, and it's always better that you can monetize it, in fact, and give it to the private sector. The issue today in this context today, so I'm going to act maybe as a bull in a china shop for this whole argument that that's one thing, and why is the context ready. So I think I'll be going off a tangent a bit, but then I think in all it'll make sense. So is everybody agreed to talk about business as usual or something disruptive? I think the choice is for disruptive. That's right. So thank you very much. Today's problem of humanity, somebody said E.O. Wilson was a great sociobiologist, and he said today's problem is of humanity that there are three problems. One is that we have Paleolithic mindset, which means our Stone Age mindset, and those emotions rather. We still work with our emotions the same way. The other is medieval institutions. Our institutions have not yet modified to the extent they should have been. They've stayed always a lag in between the way institutions are and the way they should be in a given context. And the third most important aspect is God-like technology. Now, this is what, Deepa, you talk about, that there's AI and ML and big data analytics being talked about today, and we are all amazed. But have you ever thought that it's the artificial intelligence, or it could be used also as intelligent assistance? Now, that's one argument there, that God-like technology is there. We have a technology, this context, in which we can change certain things fundamentally. And therefore, this technology, ever since 2007 particularly, has been very disruptive in the sense that there is convergence of a lot of technologies, and the nature of technological disruption is that it's surprisingly, the competence is going up and the cost is coming down. Any technology, you see, the computer that was used to land man on the moon, the cost, imagine, and the competence is millions of times more in our iPhones today, but the cost is millions of times and billions of times, maybe less than that. So that is the way in which business models are getting disrupted. So technology has the potential. When we talk about disruptive technology, probably this is the context in which we need to remember it. And it is this disruptive technology which is creating a level playing field for everybody. So even today, public sector and private sector have to revisit, they all have to revisit business as such, because business is getting disrupted. No longer the context of assumptions that, public sector is less efficient and it's more given to social philanthropy, and then private sector is the one that drives profitability. The driver of profitability has led us today, this whole growth, Faustian urge for growth has today led us to the 6th extinction event, almost the brink of 6th extinction event. And I'll share with you a very important data point that will understand, this whole context of environment that is being talked about. We talked about zero net emission 2050, 2070, so on and so forth, assuming that we would have done our job. That's not going to solve the problem, ladies and gentlemen. You know why? The current, are you all aware about what is the current level of concentration of greenhouse gases? It's 490 parts per million today. And that will make sense when the 5th extinction event took place some 50 million years ago. Till such time, pre-industrial time, just about in 1950s also, you would say, the level was only in the range of 150 to 300. So you can imagine in the last 70, 72 years, we have increased from 300 to 490 parts per million. This is a very important data point, which none of us are, most of the time we forget. Even the best of institutions in the world today, including the United Nations, and when IPCC is held, COP 26, 27, people talk less about it. Very few people talked about it. Now, you know what is the implication of this? Even if you have net zero today, public sector, private sector is not the issue right now. It's unsustainable at 490. You have to find a mechanism to reverse global warming. So net zero ambition is not the objective right now, and we have to think through it. Is there a mechanism to reverse global warming or not? There are methods, there is technology which is available, and it can actually do it by 2030. And therefore 2031 is a right idea to have an agenda for public sector. Because you can't do it, possibly we can. But if we can, it does not mean it will happen. You have to take certain choices, you have to make decisions, and that is the larger context. If we see it's possible, yes. So that is the context in which we have to evaluate the whole scenario of business today. And I was discussing in Partho, in fact, when we were talking about it, that yes, this is of course something which we were not talking about, right? We were talking, assuming the disinvestment and the financial implication of the infrastructure that we'll have. But the point is, 2031 is too far away for us to see what will be useful in 2031, ladies and gentlemen. You know, somebody asked, what is the criteria to determine something would be useful in future or not? Future we cannot predict, of course. None of us can predict. 2031, what would be useful? How will we know? There's one test, ladies and gentlemen, very interesting one. Something to be useful in future must look ridiculous today. Anything to be useful in future must look ridiculous today. So the whole idea about how can we do this business, public sector, private sector, we have lived with this whole concept of growth, bigger, bigger, bigger. You'll see what it has led us to. It's led us to a most inequitable world today. 6 people on earth own 50% of the world GDP. And we have brought ourselves onto the brink of extinction event. Growth in this formation is not possible. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the age of digitization. Yes, digitization can be used positively. Of course, technology is neutral till we use it. We can use it for destruction purposes, we can use it for weaponizing ourselves, or we can use it as intelligent assistance. Whatever is programmable, predictable can be done by technology for efficiency. An entire industrial revolution of ours has just led for efficiency. Scalable efficiency was the only objective. In today's context, we have an opportunity with this godlike technology to probably change that whole paradigm of efficiency alone, but create an environment where people, planet, prosperity collectively, and also the most important thing, purpose of growth, where you can just not think of maximizing production, maximizing consumption, and maximizing profits, but probably optimizing production, optimizing consumption, and maximizing human well-being and planetary well-being. So that is the context, ladies and gentlemen, which 6 to 7 years are very crucial for the growth of all sectors of economy. There are primarily 5 major domains of, economics. One is communication, how people communication at any given point of time in civilization, how people use their energy, what kind of sources we are going to use more and more from the fossil fuel to the renewable ones. How you use your transport, it could be more by renewable energy sources and of course autonomous to begin with later on. Level 5 technology is very well, it's just in the offing, and it has been developed to an extent that an autonomous vehicle can go to any kind of terrain with level 4 technology, and 5 to be developed later on. Food and agriculture, that itself is something that technology can create more and more out of less and less. That is the symbol of technology today. If you want to use technology, and this is not limited to private and public sector, ladies and gentlemen, and therefore I thought that this is the point that I'm trying to make, that business can really use this principle of getting more from less. People say ultimately everything from probably nothing. Now that is the efficiency of technology. That is the power of godlike technology that we have, provided we use it properly. So food and agriculture can be produced, in fact, can be producing all kinds of proteins on earth at a cost which is 100th of time less. So you can have a food cost which could be, food and the living cost of an American standard, probably say by 2030 to 2040 at $250. The American dream can be lived. That is where this whole technology and economics and finance is going ahead with. Maybe not 2030, 40, 50, but that is the way the technology is progressing. And in this context, any discussion around public sector or private sector has to be all revisited. You can have food with less without even growing in crops, without even having cattle, without having domestication of animals. Less of forest cutting, it will also be green, and it will also be better, hygienic, organic, real food by manipulating the microorganisms in the gut of the animal or the plant. And ultimately, how you manage your materials. We are all involved in materials, steel, cement, and all that sort which are most polluting, we'll go green. We have the capacity to let them all turn into green, or we can find different substitutes using precision fermentation technology. So possibly 5 domains which I have said: energy, communication, transport, food, agriculture, and materials. They have the potential of transforming the consciousness of this age. So probably this is the right time. I think I won't take time more than what's allotted to me. This was what I wanted to actually just put in, that this idea into your mind that, it's time we revalidate our assumptions. Otherwise, we are just going one way down, that de-invest, disinvest. The point is that the whole business is getting disrupted. Business models are emerging. You've seen how the private sector bank, just see in USA what happened just a few days back. This is going to be now a very normal phenomena. ChatGPT is nothing amazing. ChatGPT is something which had to happen, programmable, predictable. Anything can be mimicked by technology. We can have awesome technology, but what is required, we have amazing people also. So people-only technologies will have to be developed. Their skill sets have to be developed. That is the agenda of 2030-31. And I think if we work around that, the power of the and between private and public sector can be established. It's not either or, one is better or which is the worse off. We can have the power to work together using this godlike technology. And the only idea is that we have to invest more into these ridiculous ideas and ridiculous things. We are never too late to do that, even today. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Let's explore the unknown rather than keep on exploiting the known. That's very easy. We can get the benefit of the past, but let's not get burdened by it in future as well. So thank you, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, sir, for that very motivating address we had from you. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I have the proud privilege in inviting Mr. Sanjeev Kumar. He is Chairman and Managing Director, TCIL, to kindly share his insights with the August House. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together to welcome.
Sri Madhukar Gupta ji, Sri Rajiv Singh, other dignitaries on the dais in the hall, a very warm good afternoon to you. I'll prefer to speak on the relevance and the critical role the PSU play in the social and economic growth of the country. And that I would like to emphasize with my own personal experience. When in 90s I pass out from engineering college and I had a choice to join a government sector or a private sector. I had my own preference for private sector, thinking the government sector has more bureaucracy, the career progression issues, etc. But finally I ended up joining government sector, that's the Department of Telecom. And after my 2-year probation there, I ended up getting one of the toughest posting in telecom department. I was posted at Simla to execute the project to provide telecom connectivity in Himachal, J&K and Uttarakhand at that time, today's Uttarakhand. And at that time the concept of the, providing telecom connectivity, there was no telecom connectivity used to be at these states in Tehsil and district, Tehsil and subdivision headquarters, only district headquarters were well connected. So my role was to provide telecom connectivity with Tehsil and subdivision, and which involved the concept was that you acquire the land, you construct the building, and then put up the telecom infra. So nearly my 8 years tenure there, physically it was going from place to place, visiting the most difficult areas, be it Siachen Valley, be it tribal areas of Himachal or terrorist affected area of J&K. And then at the end of few years, when we started commissioning the telecom services at these places, and when we saw the smile on the faces of Jawans, Air Force Jawans or Army Jawans in Siachen Valley, or in the remote areas of Himachal which were not connected by roads or there was no electricity, on a remote corner of J&K or at pilgrimage center of Uttarakhand like Kedarnath, Badrinath, Yamunotri, Gangotri. So the kind of immense satisfaction it gives at that time, it changed my thought process that the kind of opportunity you can get, being in a government or a PSU sector, I could not have got those kind of opportunity to serve the nation, being in best of the private sector company and the best of the MNCs. So that's the strength of a government sector to deliver to those guys who are not connected with the mass. This opportunity you can't get elsewhere. But at the same time, PSU being a government and business entity, they can't survive long if they are not profitable. like any private sector that you have to be profitable to survive. So to be profitable, you have to reinvent your business. You have to do business process in engineering. At times, we in government sector feel there are a lot of rules to be followed, unlike private sector. But I think those rules are there to ensure that there is a transparency and transparency in our governance systems, and which is one of the important role the government, as a government sector, you have to play. But those rules should be used as a tool to facilitate your working. They should not be treated as a stumbling block in decision making process. So, for example, if you don't reinvent, like in case of telecom sectors, initially the telecom sector company thinks that their role is only to provide the connectivity, telephone connectivity or internet connectivity. Instead of that, if you feel your role that you are helping to maintain the land order services by your services, or you are helping a student to carry out his home assignment to learn in a better way, now, or a doctor to conduct the operations, to have the consultation with other specialists. So that will help you to transform, reinvent your business, to adopt the new technologies, that how you can fulfill the consumer demand, keeping in use with the new technology trend and new opportunities. So thus PSU is playing a very important and critical role in growth of Indian economy and in the social sector, which as a private entity, maybe because the profit is the prime motive in private, they may not take up that kind of project, and that so that continuity of the PSUs are equally important in time to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest of honor, Dr. Madhukar Gupta ji, is an engineer, MBA, a law graduate and PhD in economics, has worked in the governments of India, Rajasthan and Tamil Nadu as team leader in United Nations Development Programme, consultant to ADB and Sri Lankan government, non-profit sector, cooperative sector as managing director in State Road Transport Corporation and State Cooperative Dairy Federation. Sir coordinated the Bhuj earthquake and drought in Western India for the UN and Gurjar agitation for Rajasthan government. As a practitioner, Dr. Gupta has had a long tenure of 16 years in 4 divisions as Divisional Commissioner, DM in 3 districts and SDM in 2 places. He has been the Principal Secretary Higher Education and also the Vice Chancellor of University of Rajasthan and Rajasthan Agriculture University. Is an adjunct faculty at IIT Chennai, BITS and Thapa Institute of Technology. And ladies and gentlemen, I now have the proud privilege in requesting our guest of honor, Mr. Madhukar Gupta ji, to kindly address the August House. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, put your hands together to welcome.
I must really thank Rajiv Singh and his colleagues in the Indian Chamber of Commerce for having me here and also taking the risk of having somebody speak from this platform. I have worked in the government for a long time. I'm fairly old, nearly 37, 38 years. And often what I said was not liked in many quarters in the government. But having given me this opportunity, I'll say what I have to say. Just as my colleague from ECIL, MD ECIL, Mr. Rajiv Kumar, and earlier Madam Gupta said, just to put things in right perspective and give you the right context. What is the definition of a
government company. It only says any company where government or any of its entities owns 51% or more of the shares, it's a government company or it is a public sector company. That is the only difference between the public sector and the private sector. Then why so much of talk about the public sector? Public sector has been the traditional or the favorite whipping boy of everybody, especially the media. Central state-owned enterprises, as they say, the word public sector is not being used anywhere outside India. The new word which is used is state-owned enterprises. State-owned enterprises contribute nearly 11-12%. State-owned enterprises owned by the government of India, not by the state governments. They contribute nearly 10 to 12% of the national GDP. The number of centrally owned, Government of India owned public sector undertakings is more than 350. We have a very large number of centrally owned public sector undertakings. And as they say, the devil is always in the details. When I got posted to Government of India in 2015, to be honest with you, I was blissfully ignorant about the existence of the Department of Public Enterprises. I didn't even know that that kind of a department existed anywhere in the Government of India. And however hard I tried to get out of the department, it never happened. And I stayed there for 5 years. And for a civil servant, staying for 5 years in a Government of India department is very, very rare. So, because of my long stay there, I would have visited, and I found officers shy in visiting different units of the public sector undertakings in the country, from Bombay High to Digboi, to dams in Jammu and Kashmir, to interiors of Jharkhand, Bihar, West Bengal, Chhattisgarh. I remember one evening I landed in Calcutta and we were going to one of the subsidiaries of Coal India. And the guy who was accompanying me, he stopped somewhere and he asked a jeep of armed policemen to accompany us. Thereafter, he stopped again. And I realized that we had 2 jeeps of armed policemen escorting us to that area. I said, is it so bad? And I'm talking of 2017. He said, sir, I don't want to take a chance. So when I spoke to my wife, she said, what's going on? Who the hell told you to go to this area in the middle of the night? So I can tell you stories after stories of my visits to different parts of the country to see different public sector undertakings, and sometimes with parliament committees. So now, when we try to analyze, all the time the refrain is public sector undertakings are making a loss. Some of them are making a loss. When we analyzed, out of these 350 plus centrally owned public sector undertakings, only 10 PSUs, 10 companies, including Air India, they were contributing to 90% of the losses. 10 companies. And out of 350 odd companies, only 70 were in losses, and some of them in nominal losses. Now, as I said, the distinction between government and private sector is very nebulous. Only it's a question of shareholding. Now, let's go back to the vision of our political leaders post-independence. Even before that, 1931, Jamshedji Tata, he launched Air India, and he would personally select the pilots and air hostesses who would join Air India. He was so meticulous about, and he was so passionate about Air India and flying in India. Imagine the success of Air India when Singapore became independent in 61. Lee Kuan Yew sent a when Singapore Airlines was formed, he sent a delegation to have a look at Air India. Singapore Airlines, Cathay Pacific, and Thai, they're still public sector. Nokia, again, in Finland was public sector. So, these three airlines still continue to be public sector, and they have been adjudged as one of the finest airlines in the world. Air India also was something similar. It was a success story. So, 1950s, our political leaders in their wisdom initiated many processes, including the process of setting up heavy industry, so to say, where they felt the private sector did not have the financial muscle to invest or the inclination to invest in the remotest parts of the country. In geography, they say that India is one of the oldest land masses in the world. We are sitting on a pile of mineral wealth. We only have to mine it with the right technology. When we are going to get better at it, only time will tell. We are still scratching the surface. That's my feeling. Now, 50s, the processes were initiated. I remember going to Ranipur, close to Haridwar, and saw the plaque of the inauguration of BHEL Ranipur. Tears came into my eyes. That was history. And rightfully, these units were called the temples of India. During that time, how many countries, including China, how many their leaders, did they have the vision to put up this kind of infrastructure in their countries? Radio stations. For every 2-3 districts, they set up radio stations, IITs. There is no conceivable research institute which is not there in India. I remember when I was Commissioner Bikaner, I asked them, I said, what is there to see here? They said, we have a camel research institute. We have an equine research institute. And the only comparable camel research institute in the world was in Damascus in Syria. Somewhere we forgot to do the course corrections. We started very well. And when I was studying in the US, many universities, Yale, Harvard, UPenn, they have enough data to say what they have to say about the economy, the way growth has taken place or not taken place in this country. And for whatever reasons, maybe for the right reasons, that time the political leaders also said, let's go in for a mixed economy model. Something which was never tried out anywhere in the world was tried out in India. We came out with the concept of mixed economy, which again, if you feel, was the right recipe for a country like India, a country which is poor even today. I remember 2005, my professor at the Harvard Business School, Michael Porter, he had just come back in the morning from Davos, and after the class, he just signaled to me, he said, let's walk to my office, I'll get you some coffee. He said, I came back from Davos and all the Indians, they had the buttons open and they thought India had arrived. What is your answer to this question? I said, the US population is nearly 32 crores. Our population is nearly 4 times of that population. We still have more than 32 crores below the poverty line. He said, you answered my question. So even today, I don't think we can call India rich in terms of figures. A lot has happened, but a lot more could have happened. I'm a Marwadi. A Marwadi will not look at the profits he's made. He'll look at the profits he could have made. Am I right or wrong? So, a lot more could have happened. So, I want to talk about that, what could have happened. So, we started very well with the mixed economy model. But then, somewhere down the line, we strayed. People who had a vested interest in the Permit Quota Raj regime continued to persist with it. In fact, post-60s, between 70 and 90, the intensity with which the private sector was ignored repeatedly, it was pushed to the wayside. Those 20 years costed us very dear. And I remember 91 when we had to pledge gold to the international system. I was a very junior officer and I was sitting in the parliament and I heard the FM and the PM speak that day. And I felt proud to be an Indian. And both of them said, believe in yourself, believe in your country, we'll deliver. And India delivered. We got out, we extricated ourselves out of a very difficult situation. But 70 to 90 were very difficult for us. And it was all of our own creation. As I said earlier, we took off the blocks. It was like a race. We took off the blocks very fast. Now look at China, look at Singapore, South Korea, countries which became independent around our independence or even later. Korea focused on exports. And what they used to teach again in the US was, if you can do something better than others, focus on that. What is your competitive advantage vis-a-vis other people or other nations? And if you can compete globally, you can compete locally. Classic example. Many of the Indian students get scholarships, sometimes full scholarships, to go to countries like the US or even Europe. Why? Now, they are not doing a favor. When I try to understand the system, they are not doing a favor to us. They are very smart. Till high school, our athletes in the US, they are more or less at the same level. It's only when they join the university that the real race starts. So they select their best and they also pull out the best from the world, from across the world. And they make the best outside the US run with their best. And competition. The essence is competition. Public sector cannot flourish without competition. And we allowed public sector companies to become monopolies. The cost plus approach killed this country. 90, when I came to Government of India as a junior officer, as Under Secretary, getting a phone installed in my home was a big job in itself. Getting a phone in 90. Where did this over-centralization, over-emphasis on the public sector, where did it lead us? 95, I remember I was in Dubai. I wanted to talk to my father in Delhi. So I told my colleague, I said, can you stop somewhere? And we used to have these silly STD PCOs, and they used to charge like hell. As a young officer in Tamil Nadu, we used to pay through the nose to make telephone calls to Delhi. It was only when private companies came that the rates came down, everything came down. The essence is competition. When you're selling anything, any product or service, it's basically the quality and the price. Quality improved, the price came down, it is still coming down. But wherever you don't have competition, privatization also leads to increase in costs, prices. When we used to go to the Delhi airport, now I go to the Delhi airport not to spend time there. I go there to take a flight. So basically you are embarking or disembarking at an airport. And in those days, car parking would take 10 rupees or at the most 20 rupees. Now it is dynamic. 300 rupees, 500 rupees. A coffee will cost you 100 rupees. Why? Because I have no other options. All cities in the world which hit 5 million have more than one airport, 2, 3 airports. We still have one airport in all our metros. Now the other airport is coming in Bombay or in Noida. But then we never planned for it. Because I don't have other options, then I can be taken for it. I can be ripped off by the private sector. Because after all, the only motive is money. Long time back, about 25 years earlier, suddenly, and it happens all the time in government, in Department of Public Enterprises, I found officers who had never worked in the public sector. I had been CEO of 3 public sector undertakings before I joined the Department of Public Enterprises. Whereas I found colleagues who had no exposure to the public sector. 25 years earlier, when I was appointed as Managing Director of the Road Transport Corporation, I had no clue how a company works. No clue at all. And somebody told me, he said, don't raise your voice. The moment you raise your voice like a collector, you've had it. Usi din chakka jam ho jayega. And 28,000 employees, 5,000 buses, cash turnover of 2 crores in 24 hours. In 24 hours, we had in those days, 25 years earlier, a cash turnover of 2 crores and a daily loss of 25 lakhs. Cash loss of 25 lakhs a day. Now, any conscientious MD will have sleepless nights. Anyway, the first thing was to figure out what was going on. And the drivers, conductors used to come and see me. As a matter of joke, they used to say, "Ye chore ko laga diya yahan pe MD, kya karega ye?" But again, something which was in my genes. So we started working on it. And believe me, in the 4th month, we broke even. And my chairman called me. He said, "तुम कर क्या रहे हो? ये improve तो कर रही है, पर कर क्या रहे हो?" I said, "साहब, आप आराम से बैठो. आप sign करते रहिए. आप आशीर्वाद दीजिए." Anyway, so we broke even in the 4th month. And my minister called me. He said, "Guruji, I am transport minister. काम बढ़िया कर रहे हो, पर मेरा तो कुछ हो ही नहीं रहा." So I said, and I knew that I had just a few days more to last. And finally, I got transferred after 6 months. But before that, we had started giving profits of 5 lakhs a day, all other things being equal. So, again, second time, cooperative banking, we grew at 33%. And I told the chief secretary, told the secretary, "Acha, very good, very good." Nobody said anything. Finally, NABARD declared us as the bank with the highest growth rate in the country. Dairy, we grew at 45% in 1 year. So we were number 4, Amul was number 1. The point is, I refuse to believe that any public sector undertaking can make losses. It's all bullshit. No public sector undertaking will make losses if it is managed efficiently. Now, what do we do when we select people for my colleagues on the dais and in the audience will agree. Age criteria, qualification, 60 years, 65 years, 70. Why? Select the best man for the job. If Dhoni at 37 is still eligible to be selected as wicketkeeper for the country, why not others who are beyond 60? If you can have judges up to 70, why not have CMDs of PSUs beyond 60? I went to the British Parliament and they had portraits of all prime ministers except Churchill. And when I asked the question, I said, why not Churchill? In fact, Lord Swarajpal, he took me around and then he said, why don't you have something? He took me to the cafeteria. He said, Churchill, the portrait is not there for a reason. I said, what reason? He said he used to drink so much in the day itself that they thought it was a shame to put up his portrait in the parliament. I said, but they made him the prime minister of the country. That was the essence. That is wisdom. They said he was a good wartime prime minister, but not a good peacetime prime minister. Yeah, yeah. So US, they make a policy in the morning and evening. By the evening, if they are convinced that they have committed a mistake, they'll change the policy. And we stick to it. Now, what will people say? Anything that works for a country, which is in our national interest, we should embrace it. Now, when I used to work for the UN, the 90s, post-91, in India also privatized everything, corporatized everything. Why? Introduce elements of privatization in the public sector. Simple example. When I was Vice Chancellor of the Rajasthan Agriculture University long time back, farmers would come for soil testing. They would bring their soil and give money, give a fee for testing of their soil or of their water. And the guys would not do it for months together. In the next syndicate meeting, we got a resolution passed. Whoever does the testing will get 10% of the fee. The fellows would come on Saturdays and Sundays and do it. Same day they'll give the report. Again, privatization. So if you can encourage people, All India Institute, doctors are not allowed private practice. Rajasthan doctors are allowed private practice. Now a doctor is not a fool to tell a patient who can't pay to come home to be seen. He will not tell him. He will only tell somebody who can pay his fees to come to his home clinic. Now, when I talk to my colleagues or my friends who are with me in school and college, in All India Institute, they don't feel happy about it. So we have to be flexible. We have to be savvy and play according to the situation. Now, post 91, I forget the figure, but we had roughly around 150 PSUs. And the thought was, post-liberalization, the number of PSUs will come down. But it has gone up to 350 plus. Railways themselves have 28 subsidiaries. And often, so many things. Now, I remember when I was managing director of the, how much time do you give me? 10? Pardon? No. 10 more minutes? Okay. Pardon? Well, that also is true. No, but railways don't have IS officers. I don't hold a brief for any of us. Let me share it with you. I've been very critical about IS also. So, but then I remember my father, he was a technocrat. So he retired as chief engineer. When I was appearing for the civil service, he told me, he said, are you sure you want to become an IS officer? I said, what's the harm? He said, ye kuch karte karate nahi hai. So that was his feeling. So anyway, that's all right. So you have all kinds of people everywhere. So, but then I had my own battles with my own colleagues, and sometimes they would hate me for my telling them many things which were true. Anyway, so the number has not decreased. Also, these state PSUs are not on our radar screen. Two examples, two very important examples. Anybody from the power sector, NTPC is backing up. They are operating at 80-90%. Shortage of power is there at one time. At the same time, DISCOMs can't pay because they can't recover funds from the consumers. So, likewise, state transport corporations, they are in losses. You are running railways, you are running metros, airlines, but where is the last mile connectivity? So many. Now, my personal impression is there are a lot of issues of leadership also in PSUs. Wherever you had good leaders, think they have done well. But a lot of flab is still there. I remember 95, I had gone to Africa and I was staying in the paper mill of Birla's, and I found private security outside. I had never seen private security. I said, why do you need them? The police is there. And when we were kids, only that Nepali Gorkha used to say, Jagte raho. That was the only one we used to see. Now, you go anywhere in Delhi and you try to park a car anywhere, two fellows will mature from nowhere. Gaadi aage kariye. How? In the Bible, they say, they also serve who stand and wait. These guys stand endlessly without contributing anywhere to the national GDP. The whole paradigm, the whole question is, how do we contribute to creation of wealth? Public sector, private sector, are we contributing to the national wealth? Are we creating value in whatever we are doing? If we are not, we are wasting our time. Now, crores of people, security agencies, they are employing so many people. Kya chori ho jayega? What is there to steal? You go to any office, 4 fellows will be there who will stop you. And all the wrong fellows will have passes. You go anywhere. Nobody will stop them because they recognize each other. So they are partners in crime. So the point is, what are we trying to do? If we do a fair analysis of people who are just standing there and doing nothing. Sometimes I say, कि जिस देश ने कर्म का संदेश, the doctrine of karma was propounded in India. जिस देश ने कर्म का संदेश सारी दुनिया को दिया, उसी देश के लोग अपने कर्म को भूल गए. So, and our Shastras also said, don't talk, act. As Sachin said, मैं नहीं बोलूँगा, मेरा बल्ला बोलेगा. I would enter my office in Boston and I would find nobody there, no talk, no voice, and I would realize everybody is already there at their desks. I was possibly late. Endless talking without delivering. We are basically obsessed with going through the motions. Many times when I would come out of the ministry and I would reflect, कि आज दिन में किया क्या? What is the output? And many times I would be very unhappy to feel that there was nothing productive which I did in the day. My boss one day, she said, you don't contribute to the file. I said, when I realize that the right decision is being taken, I just sign it and send it up. What do you mean by contributing to the file? A doctor in All India Institute, in his cryptic, bad handwriting, will give a prescription on some paper As long as the prescription is fine, what is the value of the paper or the handwriting? As they say, I may not have the right accent, but I have the solutions. The prescription has to be right. So, let me take you to the Maruti example. When I joined the Department of Public Enterprises, I tried to figure out, and then I realized it was a government company, set up as a government company, and finally, now the government of India doesn't have a single share in Maruti. Slowly the shares were offloaded, and Suzuki bought most of them. Just see the win-win situation. Whatever the government of India or the investors had invested in Maruti has been repaid many-fold. Just less than half a dozen people on the management of Maruti are Japanese. Most of them are Indian still. But we would never have been able to sell Maruti without the brand label Suzuki. So we leveraged the global network of Suzuki, after sales, whatever. It's a win-win situation for Suzuki and for Maruti and for India. So let's not quibble about what needs to be done. There are certain functions which are sovereign. We cannot pass them on to the private sector, although countries like the US have passed on those sovereign functions also. Just because I work in government, it doesn't make me more patriotic. A person in the private sector can be more patriotic. How do we assume that they will sell off our country's secrets? So it's only a myth. So we need to infuse more capital, more technology, global technology, whatever, into our public sector. Make the public sector and the private sector, also the public sector undertakings themselves, compete with each other. Often they will say NBCC will not compete with WAPCOS. Why not? Let them bid. Whoever gets the best bid, they'll walk away with the tender. A country like India, I can't think of other examples in other parts of the world, in other religions, where we worship Lakshmi. Now, Lakshmi, if we have been worshipping Lakshmi for years, for centuries, how can we think of communism? Socialism as a principle is fine. All religions are socialistic in nature. When we read Gita, it's all about socialism, packaged differently. It's not economics, it's religion. But then packaging might be different, but Gita also talks about socialism. Islam, Guru Nanak, Sabda Pala, Vand ke kha. So, socialism as a principle is fine. But often people talk about inclusive growth. Yes, as a principle, inclusive growth is fine. Look at the Americans. People talk about reservations in India for different sections of the population. US also had affirmative action. They also had some kind of reservation. Finally, they realize that we are cutting the cake, but why don't we increase the size of the cake? Till such time we don't increase the size of the cake, what do we distribute? So the initial focus has to be, whether it's the public sector or the private sector, creation of wealth, creation of value. Thereafter, yes, we have to focus on distribution of wealth. If we don't create wealth, what will we distribute? We were fighting over telephones till 90. Why? Everything was sitting here in this country. If it can happen in the next 5-10 years, why didn't it happen in the earlier 20 years when everything was sitting here? I gave the Air India example. A lot of decisions have been taken earlier. We need to revisit those decisions. I went with my wife to Brazil for the last Olympics, the one before this Olympics. And when I land there, I find two representatives from ONGC. They had an agreement with Petrobras. Now, what is the competitive advantage of ONGC in Brazil? We talk about mergers, we talk about, creating more entities or merging entities. It's a very difficult decision. Even till today, Air India and Indian Airlines have not merged properly. It's like a kidney transplant, isn't it? The body may or may not accept the transplant. We need to be very, very careful. And as they say, lamon ne khata ki sadiyon ne saza pai. So whatever decisions that we take, we have to be very, very careful. We cannot afford to make mistakes. CSR. India is the only country which has experimented with CSR. Rightly, wrongly. My professor at the Kennedy School at Harvard, he said, what's the CSR doing in India? Why have you legislated CSR? He said, no country in the world has asked companies to undertake CSR by law. Again, slowly when we read between fine print, we realized that a company not only brings funds to the table, it also brings many other things, including networks, human resource, whatever. So, again, CSR over the years from 2013 has kind of institutionalized in the corporate ecosystem. But then a lot of scope for improvement, a lot of scope for doing much better. Unfortunately, many of the companies are taking the same route that we used to take in government. If the private companies cannot be more innovative, what is the big deal? I was secretary of the Anil Baijal Committee on CSR and used to fight with Mr. Baijal that no, let's leave it to the independence of the board of the company. Let's not take decisions. So that again is one area which I would like to flag. In many ways, public sector is doing a good job, but then this is one area where you can have many innovations, many successes in the public sector as well as in the private sector. During these 5 years I was here, so I spent about 12 years focusing on the public sector, 5 years in the Government of India, 5 years as practitioner as MD of 3 corporations, and 2 years studying public sector management in the US. The sense is, now look at the US. There is a country which is ideal for transportation by rail, by railroad transportation, never took off. Because the car companies bought the railroad companies and they never allowed the railroad companies to take off. Imagine a country like yours, how can, and if you compare the the costing of transportation, costing by railroad is much cheaper. US even today doesn't have a good bus system. Public transportation system is not there virtually. There are cities like Seattle where you don't have public buses. So a lot of questions. A country like India, we imagine a scenario where you don't have mother dairy. What happens? Who will stabilize prices? Public sector should not make undue profits. I don't want to name companies, But there are companies where they can do with less profits. You just need to be in profits. Otherwise, now take the case of Mother Dairy. I was in a dairy cooperative in Rajasthan. When you earn more profits, who pays for it? Consumer. So your role is of price stabilization. You have to take care of people who supply milk, the milk growers, and also the milk consumers. So we are there to stabilize. But slowly over a period of time, the market share of the private sector is going to go up, and for the right reasons. But for example, telephones also. Telephones now, MTNL doesn't have that kind of a role, but then still it's there. Airlines also. So we, in a country like India, we need to have the public sector, but make it viable, make it competitive, and let it collaborate with the private sector. US also now realizes that they have committed many mistakes in public policy. So they could have done better with a more vibrant public sector. So let's not go backwards. Let's make both the public sector and the private sector more competitive. Again, like to thank Rajiv for his invitation and his colleagues, and giving me this opportunity of being here and saying what I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, sir, for that insightful address, your words of motivation and inspiration. Ladies and gentlemen, let's once again put our hands together for that wonderful address we had from our guest of honor. Thank you, sir, for sparing your time and being here with us. We would also like to convey our gratitude to all our eminent speakers who are here on the dais with us. And to do the honors, I would request Dr. Rajiv Singh, Director General ICC, to present a token of gratitude and appreciation. To our guest of honor, Mr. Madhukar Gupta, IAS, Commissioner, State Election Commission, Government of Rajasthan. Sir, we once again thank you, sir, for sparing your valuable time and being here with us. We present to Mr. J.V. Ramamurthy, former President and CEO, HCL. We present to Ms. Deepa Gupta, Finance and Policy Specialist. Thank you, ma'am, for the wonderful address. And to Mr. Partha Guha, who's partner in Turnaround and Restructuring Strategy, EY. We present to Mr. Sanjeev Kumar, CMD, TCIL. Thank you, sir, for doing the honors, and I may now invite Ms. Aradhana Mishra, Deputy Director, ICC, to kindly propose the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Sapna. Good afternoon. It gives me great pleasure to deliver the closing remarks and formal vote of thanks at the end of this very engaging session. I take this opportunity to convey my sincere gratitude to our guest of honor, Mr. Madhukar Gupta, Mr. Rajiv Badoria, Ms. Deepa Gupta, Mr. Partha Gua, Mr. J.V. Ramamurthy, and Sanjeev Kumar. I would also like to thank our friends from the media for widely covering today's session. I think the session has provided us with some key insights regarding the dynamics of public and private handholding in India and way ahead for public-private partnerships. Here, I would like to highlight some key takeaways. Our economy is getting developed and our markets have come of age and are getting competitive. The ideal merger for public and private enterprises is the PPP model. The transition from PSEs to PPP will provide level playing field for both the public and private sector. 2022 was a dynamic year in markets, economics, and across geopolitics. 2023 may bring more of the same and even greater change. PSEs in India, since their inception, have played a pivotal role in realizing the objective of achieving higher growth and equitable socio-economic development of the country. Their sustained contribution to the economic and social fabric of the country has become even more relevant in the present scenario of 2023. It is also noteworthy that PSEs have provided a very strong infrastructure base for our economy as well as for our industries. Further, PSEs were set up with socio-economic objectivity and not only for profit. The PSEs have created a right kind of infrastructure for the economy. For a heavily populated country like India, PSEs were regarded as one of the key generators of remunerative employment in the formal sector, providing safe and secure jobs. The contribution of PSEs towards creation of national assets in the initial decades following independence is particularly noteworthy, especially in sectors that are regarded as high risk and low return on investments by the private sector. Today, also the role of PSEs play is unmatchable. Indian PSEs are already present across the globe in regions such as the Middle East, Africa, Europe, Asia, Latin America, and North America. And there is a tremendous potential for Indian CPSEs and PSEs to expand their global footprint for further by enhancing their competitiveness. Lastly, the private sector has played a big role in the growth of the economy. But what PSEs have contributed so far since their inception cannot be ignored, particularly in testing times like today. PSEs have time and again risen to the occasion, and this time too, post-pandemic, now at 2023, it is no different. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. So, ladies and gentlemen, before we close this session, may I request for a group photograph? Yes, sir. So, ladies and gentlemen, I once again take this opportunity in thanking our guest of honor for being here with us. Of course, he's going to stay with us till the end of the day, after the till the award presentation ceremony. We also thank our other eminent dignitaries for being here with us. Now closing this session, breaking for lunch, and the lunch break is of 45 minutes. We will request everybody to be seated back by 2:15 for the award presentation ceremony. Thank you. Please enjoy your lunch. It's served outside on the right-hand side. We request everyone to be seated, be comfortable, all mobile phones put on to silent mode. We will commence with the proceedings in few minutes from now. We are waiting the arrival of our guest of honor, who would be joining us any moment now, and we will go ahead with the proceedings of the 12th India Public Sector Agenda at 2031. Once again, kindly be seated. We also have tea and coffee served outside.
लगा तो है, लगा देना उसको।
We would request you all to kindly take your seats as we are now moving ahead to the event most awaited since morning, the award presentation ceremony. We would request you all to kindly take your seats, and once again all mobile phones to be put on to silent mode. Thank you. So ladies and gentlemen, with a round of applause, please welcome on stage guest of honor, Mr. Madhukar Gupta. We also invite Mr. Madhusudan Garg, his director, Ernst & Young. I invite Mr. Alok Parthi, advisor, Ministry of Coal, Government of India, and jury member, ICC. Also inviting Dr. Rajiv Singh, DG, ICC, to kindly join us on stage. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, for the award presentation ceremony of the 12th PSE Excellence Awards, we have on the stage with us our guest of honor, Mr. Madhukar Gupta, and our eminent guest, Mr. Madhusudan Garg, Mr. Alok Parthi, and Dr. Rajiv Singh. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together to welcome Mr. Alok Parthi. Requesting everyone to be seated. Namaskar and good afternoon, and a very warm welcome to the 12th PSE Excellence Awards ceremony. Ladies and gentlemen, the PSE Excellence Awards is an initiative by the Indian Chamber of Commerce since the year 2010 to acknowledge the game changers who have contributed immensely in shaping up the Indian economy and congratulate them for their contributions. And to begin with, I would like to request Dr. Rajiv Singh, Director General ICC, for his welcome address.
So welcome back. I think morning we had a wonderful discourse on what PSEs are doing, how they have contributed to the emergence of India as a global economy, and going ahead how they should look at things, and then we heard some keywords like the competition, increasing the pie, governance structures, efficiency, and also the take that it's all about business. I think if the governance systems are in place, management is good, it doesn't matter whether that is PSE or a private company. After all, it's about creating competition, creating the market, and growing the organization. So we are now here for the awards, basically to recognize all the great work which PSEs are doing. It is my pleasure to warmly welcome Mr. Alok Parthi, who has been with us, guiding us, supporting us, former Secretary Coal. Sir, thank you. We are also thankful to Mr. Madhukar Gupta. We just heard him and his whole experience of 12 years. I think very, very useful and very, very interesting insights. And I'm sure there are a lot of takeaways for all of you from what he shared with us. We also have with us our knowledge partner, Mr. Garg. So welcome to you. Without taking any time, I would just once again welcome you all, and I'm sure we are all keen to know about the winners and people and the PSEs who have done well. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, sir. And ladies and gentlemen, we have the privilege of having here with us our Jury member ICC and advisor Ministry of Coal, Government of India, Mr. Alok Partiji, and I have the proud privilege in inviting Mr. Alok Parti for his address. Let's put our hands together to welcome him.
Mr. Madhukar Gupta, Mr. Rajiv Singh, and Mr. Garg from Ernst & Young, members of the jury, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, of course, I thank Indian Chamber Commerce to have involved us in this exercise of selecting the awardees for the from amongst the public sector undertakings for 3 or 4 categories. Categories I don't want to repeat, but most of the people know. Well, we went through this exercise very hurriedly this time, but all the same, there was the backup from the Ernst & Young, which had probably done most of the detailed examination. We've always had questions every year as to how this system can be improved and how closer you can probably get towards something which would be more, I wouldn't say word exact, but I would say more towards a proper, or you could say a more better selection, because going entirely by just figures sometimes is misleading. We've been talking about this over and over again. In fact, when I was rung up by Subhajit and told that I've got to speak, I really didn't know where to begin. But since in the morning I heard part of it, you've been speaking about the economy, you've been speaking about the role of public sectors, how things have developed over the years. It won't be proper for me to get into that area once again. But briefly, I would say that when you talk of the economy, a very central idea in this entire gamut of activities that engulf development is perhaps energy. And today, with the what we have seen during COVID or pre-COVID and post-COVID, and now with the impact of the Ukrainian war, everybody around has started feeling that there's a lot of uncertainty that we are living with. And uncertainty linked to energy. Everybody wants that you should have cheap, good energy for everybody. It's one of the sustainable development goals, a major one of them, that you need to have the energy which is cheap, affordable, and it's easily available for everybody. Well, at the same time, you also want to say that this should be moving towards more greener energy instead of polluting the environment. This has become a very big question. What happens? Are we really prepared for shocks? Are we really prepared for uncertainties? Can we have a way out to say that there will be something very steady despite the world has changed geopolitically as well. So all those things are factors, and we are living in an era of terrific amount of uncertainty. As far as coming to the area where I have been involved with, which is fossil fuels, particularly coal. One was a little romantic 5 years ago to say that we can get rid of coal. Very, very romantic, I would say. You can get rid of coal, but we had announcements from Niti Aayog saying 2025 ke baad coal power plants will be closed down. But we are far away from it. I think the realization came much later. And with realization, we had the announcements of COP27, where we shifted the whole emphasis on sustainable goals. And we also said that net zero is not going to come so easily. We'll have to go up to 2070. So what we are seeing today is that we have to live with fossil fuels, but maybe in a very different way. How do we reduce the impact on the environment on use of fossil fuels? Now that is a whole gamut of activities. One would like to go and you can go on arguing it, talking about it for days on end. But this is where we stand today. I thought this was a time to tell, because number of public sectors are involved in either producing coal or using coal, whether it's the power sector, whether it's the steel sector, whether it's cement, or even fertilizers to some extent. So you have a whole range of activity, industrial activity that is linked with fossil fuels. Well, coming back, I thought that a small talk on where we stand with regard to energy would be most appropriate when we are talking to public sector undertakings. Coming to the awards, I had one small comment which I thought I wouldn't hesitate to make. You see, today we are talking about ESG, and it is moving much fast. We are looking at companies that are examining the compliances of various polluting industry, whether it's with the chemicals or whether it's with energy, in any way. We are looking at ESG compliance. I thought this is the right moment to shift it away from CSR. It becomes something which should be looked at it separately. And because when we went through the CSR, immediately I noticed that we're not talking about that 2% PAT which is dedicated to CSR. We are talking of investments by the company itself into certain things that lead to better and mitigating certain factors that have taken place, certain mitigation measures against the environment. So why not have something separate for ESG compliance as a separate maybe section? CSR could be left entirely to that 2% money which is being set aside of the profit, as to how that is going to be implemented, but look at it from the point of view of community. This is just a suggestion, because I felt that there was a mix-up when I looked at the rewards. Second thing is that in CSR the rules are changing very, very fast. We've had something down 2020, then 2021. Plenty of rules are changing. Monitoring has been improved, or rather made more terse. So one must maybe keep that in mind. Besides that, how to implement, to whom to implement, also there are lots of restrictions which have been put. All that must be seen through the lenses of the government, because that is where they are making the rules. I think a bit about public sectors. Well, there are ups and downs. At one time one heard, okay, let's disinvest, let it get away. But over the years we learned that this is perhaps not the right solution. Major disinvestments have been carried through. I can give the example of Coal India, one of the biggest IPOs that were there in 2010. We amassed something like 15 to 16,000 crores for the government through one IPO. But then slowly other IPOs came in, and slowly I think there was a realization that this may not be the best way. But today what we find in number of the IPOs coming up with public sectors, while it's a very good thing as far as the management issues are concerned, to be able to bring in public investment, people's investment, and to put some kind of a pressure on the management to perform and keep in mind the rights of a minority shareholder. that to that extent one is too talking about and would say, yes, that's a good idea. But whether it is leading to efficiency, whether the kind of disinvestment is getting the kind of money the government is looking for, or is it somewhere in between? It's neither here nor there. But it is a trend which is going on, and it will probably continue. Buyback is another area which I found being done, but buybacks in public sector, I have not been able to really find out any other reason except that government wants the money. Buybacks otherwise in the industrial world is done basically when you want to go into the market, raise your share price, and again collect through an FPO or some other means from the market, but we don't do it in public sector. So I do not know whether that principle really holds. But all the same, what we find happening in the public sector is something very significant and needs to be kept in mind, that while we are moving towards more and more of private equity investment or engagement, we still remain within the government rules as long as you are a public sector. And let us also accept, I think, that in a country with low growth, I wouldn't say very high growth, maybe we as compared to others, we may say we are doing okay, but to be able to say that you're going to reach high development areas in the next 20 years or 30 years, you need a very high growth of 8 to 10% maybe. Now, if you don't have that, then one cannot think in terms of reduce or getting away. Maybe diminishing the role of public sectors could be a better way, but you just can't get away in the present circumstances. I think with these words, I would like to close my small address, and I thank the organizers once again to have instituted these awards, basically to encourage better performance of the public sector undertakings. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, the significance of the role by public enterprise in any country, particularly in the developing ones, can hardly be ever emphasized, and public enterprises as a form of business organization have attained a great deal of significance in recent times. Across the globe, public expectations and priorities are changing, and along with it, the need to proactively and dynamically adopt new practices and technologies. And may I now invite Mr. Madhusudan Garg, Director, Ernst & Young, to kindly present the award methodic. Over to you, sir.
A very good afternoon to everyone. Thank you, esteemed panelists and all the guests in this event. My name is Madhusudan Garg, and I am director with EY. I will just give a very brief introduction about myself. I have worked extensively in PSUs and private space on the fundraising, restructuring, and refinancing aspects, and almost more than 1 lakh crore resolutions around debt, whether it is related to refinancing, resolutions, or maybe in certain situations, acquisition under the stress space. And coming for this event, which is a PSE Excellence Awards, I would like to say that this is an initiative of ICC, where we can say the performance of the public sector enterprises in various aspects, which is related to business, governance, and the sustainability that have been recognized. So what we have done, we have prepared a very brief presentation which talks about the methodology which we have followed for arriving the finalization of the awards for this PSE Excellence. As you can see on the screen, there are 20 participating PSEs for this event, and there are 41 nominations. And we have 5 award categories, which you can see clearly on the screen, which is Operational Performance Excellence, Corporate Social Responsibility and Sustainability, Contribution of Women and Differently Abled in PSEs, and 4th one is the CEO, CMD, MD of the Year. And there is also a special award which is actually decided entirely by the jury, which is Company of the Year. And as you can see, we have 2 categories of award. which is Maharatna and Mini Ratna. And we have for each of the category, we try to have one winner and two runner-up. This is going to be the 12th PSE Excellence Awards, and this initiative has been started by ICC since 2010. As we can move on to the next slide, we have just started out that what's the role of ICC and what is the role of EY. We tried that the nominations and the categories should be more relevant and more realistic as compared to the current scenario, and basis which ICC helped us in finalizing the award categories and also in coordinating the nomination forms with all the PSUs so that we can guess the maximum information in the minimum time. What EY has done is, in terms of questionnaire, what we have received from the various PSUs, there has been quantitative information which has been tabulated, and of course there are qualitative questions around which we have tried and captured the information and the responses what we have received from the various PSEs. In terms of approach, it has been a very robust and a very transparent approach where we have considered three-step process in which one is the, as you can see, the step one is assisting in setting up awards framework, where we have seen that what kind of evaluation matrix has been used in the previous years, which is related to quantitative numbers and qualitative numbers. We have seen the evaluation criteria, that how these awards have been evaluated in terms of discussion with the jury or internal marking, how these marks have been obtained. And once these evaluation and the quantification has been received, this has been thoroughly discussed with the jury members, and based on these, awards have been finalized. So in terms of these categories, 5 categories, as you can see in the screen, in terms of quantitative questions, as you can see for each of the category, there is a quantitative marking and there is also qualitative marking. And for each of the quantitative marking, there is a backup of information and the data which we have received from various PSEs, and based on that, that evaluation has been done. In terms of qualitative questions, we have got the responses from various PSEs, and again in terms of marking, we have taken the guidance from the jury members, and based on this, we have done the marking in terms of qualitative questions. So now I think the awards and the nominations and the finalization of marks has been finalized and thoroughly discussed with all the jury members. And I would like to especially thank you all the esteemed jury members who have been very cooperative and especially have been very encouraging in terms of discussing and giving responses and even responding in a very time efficient manner, where Dr. Bhaskar Chatterjee, who is a jury member, who is a jury chair of this jury, I would like to thank Ms. Deepa Gupta, Mr. J.V. Ramamurthy, Dr. Udesh Kohli, Mr. Alok Parti, and Mr. H.L. Zutsi. I would like to thank you all the PSEs and congratulate all the winners who have participated for this event. And again, once again, I would like to thank you ICC team, Dr. Rajiv Singh and Subhojit ji and other colleagues who have helped us and giving us opportunity to be part of this PSE Excellence Awards. So handing over to you, ma'am, and thank you very much and best of luck and congratulations to all the PSEs.
Thank you very much indeed. And ladies and gentlemen, before we move ahead with the award presentation, I would request Dr. Rajiv Singh to do the honors of felicitating our dignitaries on the days. We would like to honor Shri Alok Parti ji. A small token of appreciation and gratitude to you, sir. And Mr. Madhusudan Garg. Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, our eminent jury members have been tirelessly working to shortlist the final awardees, and I would now like to request our guest of honor to do the honors of felicitating the esteemed jury. We have with us on the stage So, ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin with the award presentation. I would request a guest of honor to kindly do the honors of giving away the awards. So, would you like to step forward? So, the first category for the awards is Operational Performance Excellence, and the category of Maharatna and Navratna. The second runner-up are Power Finance Corporation Limited. Let's put a hand together. The winners for Mini Ratna Builders and Engineers Limited. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for the winners, the Garden Reach Shipbuilders Limited. We now move on to the third category, which is exclusively contributions for women and different ages from the Maharashtra and Navratna. The second runner-up are Bharat Electricals Limited, BHEL. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together to our women achievers. The second runner-up from BHEL amongst the Maharashtra and Navratna. The first runner-up are Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. Guha and Ashley Master. Let's put our hands together for the knowledge partners, Ernest and Young, for the efforts they've put in, for the work. And may I invite once again all the awardees to join us on the stage for the group photograph. All the awardees to kindly join us on the stage for the group photograph. Kindly carry your trophies with you for the We would request the jury members to come up on the stage for the group photograph. The jury members on the stage, please. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, congratulations to all the distinguished awardees for winning this prestigious award this year. We look forward to many more such wins next year coming up, 13th PSE Excellence Awards next year. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I invite Dr. Rajiv Singh to kindly say a few words of thanks before we close the
I'd like to quickly thank, compliment, congratulate all the PSE leaders for doing the amazing work, for building the Indian economy. And on behalf of ICC, we can only salute you for all the great work which you are doing. I know what it takes at the back end for the people and the teams. This is all because of the hard work, people who are not here in this room, the larger team, everybody. So on behalf of the jury, all of us, we would like to congratulate you, and we are confident that PSEs will take India ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much indeed, sir. And ladies and gentlemen, once again, taking this opportunity to thank our guest of honor, all our eminent speakers, and congratulating all the distinguished awardees for their win today. Ladies and gentlemen, we close the proceedings of today's event. Thank you to each one of you for your participation in making this event a huge success that it was. Thank you once again. Have a wonderful evening ahead. Safe journey home. Good evening and namaskar.